We all agreed. You're not welcome at the product launch, my manager said with a smirk. The higher-ups want a certain image for the event, and frankly, we need the space for potential investors. The conference room felt suddenly too small, too airless. 6 months of my life, gone in a single sentence. 6 months of staying until midnight, of canceled weekend plans and skipped family gatherings. 6 months where I'd transformed their failing travel device into something that actually worked. Good to know, I replied, transferring the $8,600 marketing budget back to my personal account with a few taps on my phone. I'll also be canceling the Globetrotter partnerships I secured. They were agreements with me personally, not the company. I looked up from my phone to see his face drain of color. You can't do that. I already have. Before I continue my story, if you're enjoying this so far, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories like this one. Your support means everything, and comments let me know what resonates with you. Now, back to the day, everything changed. My name is Finola, and until that moment in the conference room, I'd been the navigation specialist who saved Project Wayfinder from total failure. Before I joined, their revolutionary travel device was malfunctioning 90% of the time, rendering it completely useless for anyone venturing beyond cellular service. I wasn't supposed to be their savior. Actually, I almost didn't get the job. During my interview, the technical director, Cameron, kept interrupting me with actually and technically speaking before repeating exactly what I'd just said. My manager-to-be, Lyle, spent more time looking at my resume than at me. You have an interesting background, he'd said, in a tone that suggested interesting wasn't a compliment. I developed my navigation algorithm while working alone in my apartment after my previous employer shuttered during the economic downturn. It was my passion project, connecting to satellites in a completely new way that required minimal power and provided pinpoint accuracy even in remote areas. When they offered me the job, the salary was lower than I'd hoped, but I accepted anyway. The project was perfect for my algorithm, and I believed in what we were building, a device that could save lives. The first 3 months were promising. The team seemed impressed by how quickly I integrated my navigation method into their device, improving its success rate from 10% to 85%. I worked weekends refining it to 100% reliability. I remember the moment it first worked perfectly, 3:17 a.m. on a Tuesday. I'd been in the office for 19 straight hours and danced around the empty room when the test succeeded. This is game-changing, my colleague Aaron had said the next morning, examining my results. How did you solve the satellite connectivity issues so efficiently? Before I could answer, Lyle appeared behind us. Team effort, he said, clapping a hand on my shoulder that felt more possessive than congratulatory. The direction I suggested really pulled things together. I frowned. What direction was that, Lyle? He laughed as if I'd told a joke and walked away without answering. That was the first red flag. Others followed quickly. In our weekly development meetings, Lyle began presenting my progress as our approach and the team's solution, never mentioning my name. When important investors visited, I was asked to let the business team handle explanations, despite being the only one who truly understood how the technology worked. Then, 4 months in, came the marketing crisis. We're pulling funding for the final marketing push, Lyle announced. The board thinks we should wait until next quarter. But we promised the Globetrotter partnerships, I protested. 5 exclusive adventure companies agreed to feature us based on that timeline. Sometimes business decisions change, Lyle said with a shrug. That night, I couldn't sleep. The device worked. It could genuinely save lives. Adventurers needed it. And the partnerships I'd cultivated would put it in the hands of people who could spread the word globally. The next morning, I made a decision that would eventually lead to my downfall, or my liberation, depending on how you look at it. I'll fund the marketing myself, I told Lyle. I believe in this product enough to invest $8,600 of my own money. His eyes widened with surprise, then narrowed with calculation. That's very generous, Finola. Weekends became business trips. I flew to meet with the Globetrotter companies, elite adventure outfitters who catered to wealthy thrill seekers worldwide. I demonstrated the device personally, answering technical questions no one else on the team could have addressed. Your passion is convincing, said Astor, the CEO of North Star Expeditions. Most tech people can't explain why their gadgets matter. You make me believe this could save my clients' lives. One by one, all 5 companies signed exclusive partnership agreements. With me, personally, not with the company, a detail I didn't think mattered at the time. When I returned with the signed agreements, something had shifted. Lyle took the contracts without thanking me. At the celebration happy hour, I was seated at the far end of the table, away from the executives. I started noticing closed-door meetings I wasn't invited to. My name disappeared from project updates. The marketing materials showcased everyone but me. Then came the moment that changed everything. I had forgotten my water bottle and returned to the office after hours. Passing by the conference room, I heard Lyle's voice. After launch, we'll phase her out completely. We've got what we needed from her. The navigation technique is documented now, and we don't need her explaining it anymore. What about the Globetrotter contacts? Asked a voice I recognized as Cameron's. They're partnership agreements with the company, not with her personally, Lyle replied. I froze outside the door. He was wrong. The agreements specifically named me as the point of contact with exclusive presentation rights. And my navigation algorithm? I'd developed it before joining the company. My contract included intellectual property protections I'd insisted on. They had usage rights, not ownership. That night, I scoured my contract, confirming what I already knew. The navigation method remained legally mine. The marketing money was still in my personal account because the finance department hadn't processed the transfer yet, and the Globetrotter partnerships were tied directly to me. For 2 weeks, I said nothing, did nothing. I smiled in meetings while Lyle took credit for my work. I nodded when executives spoke about our navigation solution, and I consulted my mentor, Kendra, who had guided me through my career since university. Document everything, she advised, and wait for them to show their true colors completely. The true colors emerged exactly 7 days before launch. We all agreed. You're not welcome at the product launch, Lyle said with that smirk I'll never forget. The higher-ups want a certain image for the event, and frankly, we need the space for potential investors. After I left the conference room, after I transferred back my marketing money and canceled the partnerships, I sent one final email, a formal notice reclaiming my intellectual property and revoking their right to use my navigation algorithm. Then I went home, turned off my phone, and slept better than I had in months. Morning brought 28 missed calls and one message that would change everything. By the time I checked my phone, the company's damage control machine was in full swing. The first 20 calls were from various members of the leadership team, their messages evolving from confusion to anger to desperation as the hours passed. What have you done? Cameron's voice sounded panicked. The demo isn't working. Nothing's connecting to the satellites. Lyle's messages started with threats. This is grounds for legal action. Then shifted to bribes by the afternoon. We can negotiate a better title, higher compensation. The 28th call was from him too, left at 3:14 a.m. You've ruined us. The investors walked out. This is career suicide, Finola. No one will hire you after this. But it was the 27th call, from an unknown number, that caught my attention. My name is Yvonne Trellis. I attended your company's product launch yesterday as a potential investor. I watched the demonstration fail spectacularly. And more interestingly, I watched how the team handled the crisis. No one could explain what went wrong because, I suspect, no one understood how it worked in the first place. Your mentor Kendra mentioned you might be available for a conversation about new opportunities. Call me when you're ready to lead, rather than follow. I replayed the message twice. Kendra had been at the launch, and she'd spoken to investors about me. My phone rang while I was still processing this. Kendra, I hope you slept well, she said when I answered. You've caused quite the earthquake. You were there? At the launch? Of course. I wouldn't miss watching Karma in action. I could hear the smile in her voice. Yvonne called you? Yes, but call her back, today. And Finola? Don't agree to anything with your old company. Not yet. I followed her advice, calling Yvonne immediately after. That was quick, Yvonne answered. Good. I don't like waiting. Her voice had a crisp efficiency that matched her message. No small talk. No wasted words. I understand you developed the navigation algorithm that was supposed to be demonstrated yesterday, she said. I did, and I own the intellectual property. Smart. Even smarter to protect yourself legally from the beginning. Tell me, what did you envision for this technology beyond a gadget for wealthy adventurers? The question caught me off guard. For months, I'd been so focused on making the device work, I hadn't allowed myself to dream bigger. It could help search and rescue teams locate people more efficiently, I said, guide medical supply deliveries to remote areas, even assist disaster response when traditional infrastructure fails. Exactly, she replied, which is why I have no interest in investing in a company that sees it merely as a luxury item for thrill seekers. I run the Artemis Group. We develop technology with humanitarian applications. I'd like you to consider joining us, with full ownership of your intellectual property and leading your own development team. What about my reputation? Lyle is telling everyone I committed career suicide. She laughed, a warm, genuine sound. In my experience, people who create extraordinary things can't be kept down by ordinary gossip. Besides, your mentor speaks very highly of you. That carries weight. When would you want me to start? How about now? I'm having lunch with Kendra at Brighton's in an hour. Join us. The restaurant was quieter than I expected for the middle of the day. Kendra waved from a corner table, where she sat with a woman I assumed was Yvonne, tall, with silver-streaked dark hair and intensely focused eyes. There she is, Kendra said, standing to hug me. The woman who brought down Project Wayfinder with 3 mouse clicks. I didn't bring it down. I clarified, taking a seat. I just took back what was mine. Yvonne nodded approvingly. An important distinction. Tell me exactly what happened. Over lunch, I explained everything, from the development of my algorithm to the subtle ways I'd been sidelined, culminating in being excluded from the launch. And the device won't function without your navigation method? Yvonne asked. No. They could potentially develop an alternative, but it would take months, and they'd lose their market advantage. Which explains why their lawyer contacted me this morning, Kendra interjected. They want to arrange a meeting. They're claiming you stole proprietary information. My stomach tightened. That's impossible. I have documentation proving I developed the algorithm before joining. Of course you do, Kendra patted my hand. But they're desperate. The launch was very public, and the failure even more so. They need a scapegoat or a miracle, preferably both. What should I do? Yvonne set down her water glass deliberately. Meet with them. Listen to what they offer. Then walk away. Just walk away? After everything they did? Sometimes, Kendra said, the most powerful position is to show people exactly what they've lost. 2 days later, I found myself back in the same conference room where Lyle had told me I wasn't welcome at the launch. The energy couldn't have been more different. The executive team sat clustered at one end, their body language tense. Lyle wouldn't meet my eyes. The CEO, Damaris, whom I'd only met twice before, did most of the talking. We believe there's been a misunderstanding, she began. Really? I kept my voice neutral. Which part was misunderstood? When Lyle told me I wasn't welcome at the launch, or when he discussed phasing me out after stealing my intellectual property. Damaris glanced sharply at Lyle, whose face reddened. We value your contributions, she continued. The launch, difficulties, have made us realize how integral you are to the project. We're prepared to offer you a substantial promotion, equity in the company, and full credit for the navigation technology. I nodded thoughtfully. That's generous. May I see the specifics? She slid a folder across the table. The offer was impressive on paper. Triple my previous salary, a vice president title, and 5% equity. They were desperate. I closed the folder and slid it back. I appreciate the offer, but I've accepted a position elsewhere. The room tensed immediately. You can't take our technology to a competitor, Lyle blurted. It's not your technology, I corrected him. As my contract clearly states, the navigation algorithm remains my intellectual property, with usage rights granted to the company, rights I've now revoked. We're prepared to take legal action, Damaris warned. I smiled slightly. I welcome that. My documentation is extensive, including recordings of conversations where Lyle specifically discussed taking credit for my work and removing me from the project after launch. The silence that followed was profound. Recording conversations wasn't illegal in our state with single-party consent, and they knew it. What do you want? Damaris finally asked. Nothing from you. I've already found a position where my work will be valued for what it can do, not who can take credit for it. As I stood to leave, Lyle spoke up. The Globetrotter partnerships, We need those contacts. I paused at the door. You should have thought of that before telling me I wasn't welcome at the launch. Walking out of that building for the final time felt like shedding a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying. My phone buzzed with a text from Yvonne. How did it go? Exactly as you predicted, I replied. Good. Your team is ready to meet you tomorrow. 9 a.m. My team. 2 words I hadn't anticipated hearing so soon. The Artemis Group occupied the top floors of a renovated industrial building across town. Unlike my previous company's sterile corporate environment, Artemis embraced an open, collaborative space filled with plants and natural light. Yvonne met me in the lobby. Ready to meet your people. She led me to a bright conference room where 5 people waited, 3 women and 2 men, all with the focused expressions of people who loved solving problems. This is Finola, Yvonne introduced me, the navigation specialist I told you about. She's leading our new disaster response initiative. A woman with bright eyes and a quick smile extended her hand first. I'm Tanvi, communications expert. Your navigation method is exactly what we've been looking for. One by one, they introduced themselves. Jasper, satellite systems analyst. Orla, software integration. Hudson, hardware design. And Maeve, field testing coordinator. We've been developing emergency response systems for 3 years, Orla explained. But location accuracy has been our biggest hurdle, especially in areas with damaged infrastructure. Show her the prototype, Yvonne suggested. Hudson pulled out a device roughly the size of a deck of cards. We call it Beacon. It's designed to work when nothing else does, guiding rescue teams or dropping supply packages with precision. But our current navigation system fails about 40% of the time in extreme conditions. I turned the device over in my hands, already seeing how my algorithm could be adapted. I can fix that, but I want to go further, make it smaller, more energy efficient. That's why you're here, Yvonne said. This is your project now. Full credit, full control. For the next 3 months, we worked intensively, refining Beacon into something extraordinary. My algorithm integrated perfectly, enhancing the device's capabilities beyond what even I had imagined. We tested it in increasingly challenging conditions, dense forests, mountain ranges, storm systems, and it performed flawlessly. The team dynamic was transformative after my previous experience. Ideas flowed freely, with credit given wherever it was due. When problems arose, we solved them together, without politics or posturing. Exactly 90 days after joining Artemis, we prepared for our first field demonstration with potential partners from international aid organizations. Unlike my previous company's focus on wealthy adventurers, these partners would put Beacon where it mattered most: disaster zones, conflict areas, remote communities needing medical supplies. The night before the demonstration, I received an unexpected email from Aster at North Star Expeditions, one of the Globetrotter companies whose partnership I'd canceled. Heard you're doing something meaningful with your navigation tech. Our clients keep asking about the device you showed us. Your old company tried to approach us with something similar, but it doesn't work half as well. Would you consider meeting? I forwarded it to Yvonne with a question mark. Her reply came minutes later. Your call. Luxury market isn't our focus, but additional revenue streams support humanitarian work. I decided to invite Aster to our demonstration. Why not let him see what the technology could really do? The morning of the demonstration arrived with perfect clarity, both in weather and in my mind. As I prepared my presentation, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Heard you're showcasing a new device today. Trying to stay relevant after burning bridges? Lyle. I showed the message to Kendra, who had come to support me. She raised an eyebrow. He's still monitoring your moves. That tells you everything. Should I respond? Why waste the energy? Your success today will say everything necessary. The demonstration was scheduled for 10 a.m. in a large field outside the city, where we'd created various scenarios to showcase Beacon's capabilities. As our team made final preparations, I spotted Aster arriving with 2 colleagues I didn't recognize. Finola. He greeted me with genuine warmth. Your mentor mentioned you were working on something special. These are my associates, Lena and Miguel. They oversee our humanitarian expeditions division. I hadn't known North Star had a humanitarian division. I thought you focused on luxury adventures. That's our profitable arm, Aster explained. But we use that income to fund disaster response and medical supply deliveries in crisis regions. It's less publicized. Yvonne joined us, introducing herself with a firm handshake. Your humanitarian work is precisely why Finola suggested inviting you today. As we walked toward the demonstration area, I noticed a sleek black car pulling into the parking area. Through the windshield, I recognized Damaris, my former CEO, and beside her, Lyle. We have unexpected guests, I murmured to Yvonne. She followed my gaze and shrugged. It's a public demonstration. Let them watch. The field was set up with various stations simulating challenging environments. A dense tree canopy created with camouflage netting, a water feature representing flooded terrain, and a mock rubble pile resembling a collapsed building. At each station, team members were positioned with beacon devices. 30 guests had gathered, representatives from global aid organizations, government agencies, and now, unexpectedly, my former employers. Lyle stood at the back, arms crossed, with an expression of practiced skepticism. I stepped to the front, feeling a momentary flutter of nervousness that dissolved when I looked at my team's encouraging faces. Thank you for coming today. What you're about to see isn't just another navigation device. Beacon represents a fundamental shift in how we locate and reach people in crisis situations. I explained the core technology without technical jargon, focusing instead on practical applications. When infrastructure fails, when cell towers are down, internet is unavailable, and traditional GPS is compromised, Beacon continues functioning with pinpoint accuracy. As I spoke, my team demonstrated at each station. Hudson showed how Beacon could locate and guide rescuers to a victim hidden beneath the mock rubble. Tanvi demonstrated its communication capabilities, sending location data despite signal-blocking materials. Orla showcased its durability by submerging a unit in water while it continued transmitting. Most importantly, I continued, Beacon doesn't just help people find their way. It helps them find each other when it matters most. I glanced toward the back where Lyle was whispering something to Damaris. Their presence bothered me less than I expected. They no longer had power over my work or my worth. The demonstration concluded with a practical challenge. We invited attendees to hide anywhere within the 50-acre testing ground. Each carried a small beacon receiver. Our team, equipped with locator units, would find them, even those who deliberately tried to mask their signals or position themselves in difficult terrain. Within 20 minutes, all participants were located, including Miguel, who had wedged himself into a drainage pipe beneath 6 feet of soil. The applause was immediate and enthusiastic. Representatives from 3 international aid organizations approached me before I'd even finished thanking everyone for coming. We need this technology in Syria next month, said one. Can it be adapted for aerial drops in flood zones? Asked another. How quickly can you produce 1,000 units? Inquired a third. As I fielded questions, I noticed Aster deep in conversation with Yvonne. They both looked serious, nodding occasionally. Nearby, Lyle and Damaris stood awkwardly, clearly unsure whether to approach me or leave. Kendra appeared at my elbow. Your former boss and his boss look like they've swallowed something sour. I smiled. I'm surprised they came at all. People always want what they can no longer have, she said. Speaking of which, Yvonne asked me to rescue you from this crowd. There's something important to discuss. She led me to a small tent we'd set up as a command center. Inside, Yvonne and Aster were examining spreadsheets on a tablet. There you are, Yvonne said. Aster has an interesting proposal. Aster looked up. North Star wants to fund immediate deployment of 200 beacons for disaster zones in Southeast Asia. We'd purchase them and donate them through our foundation. That's substantial, I said, surprised by the scale. We weren't planning production runs that large for another 6 months. That's the other part of the proposal, Yvonne added. Aster has manufacturing connections that could accelerate production while maintaining quality control. And in exchange, we'd like exclusivity for the luxury adventure market, Aster explained. A separate version of Beacon for our high-end clients. They're willing to pay premium prices, which helps fund the humanitarian deployments. It was a brilliant solution. Using wealth to subsidize need. Exactly what my original technology should have done. I'm interested, I said, but I need to discuss it with my team first. They deserve input on any major decision. Yvonne nodded approvingly. That's exactly what I told Aster you'd say. As we exited the tent, I nearly collided with Lyle, who appeared to have been hovering nearby. Finola, he said, with forced casualness. Impressive demonstration. Thank you, I replied, keeping my tone neutral. Damaris and I were hoping to speak with you privately. Kendra, still beside me, crossed her arms. About what, exactly? Damaris stepped forward. We'd like to discuss a potential collaboration. Your technology with our market reach. My technology is already reaching the market it was meant for, I said. But you're limiting yourself to niche applications, Lyle argued. We still have the infrastructure to mass produce for consumer markets. We could make this accessible to everyday users, not just disaster scenarios. I considered his words. There was some truth to them. Wider distribution could help more people, but I remembered how they'd treated my work before, how they'd tried to erase me from it. Send a formal proposal to Yvonne, I finally said. We'll review it alongside other partnership opportunities. Damaris looked relieved, but Lyle frowned. You're really going to make us jump through corporate hoops? After everything we've been through together? Yes, I replied simply, because what we went through together taught me the value of proper process and documentation. As they walked away, Kendra squeezed my shoulder. You've grown. Is that your subtle way of saying you're proud of me? Nothing subtle about it. I'm explicitly proud. And, over the next 6 months, Beacon transformed from prototype to life-saving reality. We partnered with Astor's network for manufacturing, creating 2 versions, the standard humanitarian model and a premium adventure edition that helped finance our broader mission. We did eventually collaborate with my former company, but on strictly limited terms. They became one distribution channel among many, with clearly defined boundaries and ownership recognition. Lyle was notably absent from all negotiations. I later heard he'd been transferred to a different division after internal investigations into his management practices. The real validation came 9 months after our first demonstration. A massive earthquake struck a remote region, destroying infrastructure and leaving thousands stranded. Traditional rescue methods were failing due to landslides and damaged roads. An aid organization deployed 50 beacons via helicopter drops. Over the next week, rescue teams located 217 survivors who would otherwise have been unreachable. Among them were 43 children from a school buried by a landslide, all found alive because their teacher had activated the beacon from beneath the rubble. When the rescued children's images appeared on international news, I gathered my team to watch together. No one spoke as footage showed the first child emerging from the debris, clutching a rescue worker's hand. Then Tanvi began to cry quietly. That's why we do this, Hudson whispered. In that moment, the petty office politics and credit stealing of my past seemed impossibly small. This was what my algorithm had been meant for all along. A week later, I received an unexpected email. You probably don't remember me. I'm Erin from your old team. I wanted you to know that what you created is saving lives, and some of us always knew it was your work that made it possible. The kids from the earthquake, that was your vision. No one can take that from you. I remembered Erin clearly. She'd been the first to recognize the potential of my algorithm before Lyle started claiming credit. I replied, "Thank you, Erin. If you're ever looking for a new opportunity, reach out. We're expanding." She joined our team 2 months later, bringing valuable insights from her experience. When I asked why she'd left her previous position, she smiled wryly. After watching what happened with you, I realized I wanted to work somewhere my contributions would be valued, not appropriated. Her words reminded me of something Kendra had told me long ago. Your worth isn't determined by those who failed to see it. On the 1-year anniversary of Beacon's launch, we held a celebration at Artemis headquarters. The walls were covered with photos from successful deployments, disaster zones, remote medical deliveries, rescue operations. Each image represented lives touched by our technology. During the celebration, Yvonne pulled me aside. There's someone who wants to meet you. She led me to her office, where an older woman waited, elegant, with wise eyes that seemed to see right through me. This is Dr. Eleanor Voss, Yvonne introduced us. She founded Artemis 30 years ago. I extended my hand, immediately starstruck. Dr. Voss was legendary in technological innovation circles, though she rarely made public appearances. Your beacon has exceeded my expectations, she said, clasping my hand warmly. Yvonne was right about you. Thank you, I managed. It's been a team effort. The best innovations always are, she agreed. But it takes a special kind of leader to transform personal setback into universal benefit. Not everyone can turn betrayal into blessing. Her words struck deep. I had never framed my journey that way. From exclusion to innovation. From rejection to revolution. I didn't set out for revenge, I admitted. Of course not, she smiled. Revenge is small. What you did was reclaim your power and use it for something greater than yourself. That's not revenge. That's rebirth. Later that evening, as the celebration wound down, I found a quiet moment alone. My phone buzzed with a message from Kendra, stepping out early. Remember when you first told me about your navigation algorithm? You said you wanted to create something that helps people find their way when they're lost. You've done that, in more ways than one. I looked around at my team, now 20 strong and growing, laughing together, celebrating our shared accomplishment. I thought about the lives saved, the partnerships forged, the future innovations already taking shape. The ultimate vindication wasn't proving Lyle wrong. It wasn't watching my former company scramble to recover. It wasn't even the success of Beacon itself. It was finding my true path, one guided not by bitterness over being excluded, but by clarity about where I belonged. Sometimes, the most powerful response to "you're not welcome" is simply to create something better elsewhere. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's becoming exactly who you were meant to be. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe for more tales of resilience and triumph. Your comments mean the world to me. I'd love to know what resonated with you or what other stories you'd like to hear. Thank you for listening to my journey from exclusion to innovation. Remember, sometimes the wrong door closing leads you exactly where you're meant to be.